Can you introduce the sir?
Yes, sure, sir. Good morning, all.
Thank
My name is Manupriya. Here I am going to introduce about the faculty Navneet Bhushan. He is a founder director of a crafty consulting and innovation strategy and intellectual property researcher consulting and training firm headquartered at the Bangalore, India. Completed 12 years of successful operations in May 2020. He is a member of a board of School of National Security Studies, Central University Gujarat, and advisors to deep technology companies such as Activis Tech and Not 109. He is a principal author of Strategic Decisions Making Applying the Analytic Hierarchy Process, published by a Springer Verlag UK. The book has more than 1,000 citations on Google Scholar and has been featured at Harvard Business School, Working Knowledge for Business Leaders. He is an associated editor of International Journals of Analytic Hierarchy Process and review research papers for defense science journals. He writes on strategic defense and security frequently at Indian Defense Review. From July 2020, Navneet has started a fortnightly column on national security technologies. Navneet has been confirmed the Society for Reliability in Engineering, Quality and Operations Management. Confirm an award to Navneet of outstanding contributions as an author, researcher, consultant, and innovator of a sixth international conference at Delhi University 2012 as vice president and head with Hexaware Technologies, principal consulting with Wipro Technology, CEO of Information Technology PV Ltd, technology specialist at Philips Global Intellectual Properties and Standard Divisions and senior research associate with the Infosys Technologies. Before the joining of the corporate world, Navneet worked as a scientist and a defense research and development organizations for more than a decade. Navneet has authored more than 65 technical research papers, articles in various internationals and nationals authors, trade managers, and he has been invited speakers in a core technology forums, conference, and seminars. Has been regular contributions in the nationals and internationals medias on technologies and business. Navneet has interviewed on India's national television network as a patients expert and for All India radios. As an innovations expert, he was spoken at various organizations, forum conferences, and invite speakers, keynote speakers such as GE Trends. Navneet Bhushan founded Crafty, an innovations research and consulting firm at Bangalore, India. His early positions include scientist, technology specialist, vice president in career, spanning more than 30 years. The principal authors of 2004 book Strategies, Decisions Making, Springer, UK. Currently, he is working in choice crafting, innovations and decisions for a complex world. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhanupriya. Thank you very much for the brief description of the Navneet Bhushan, sir. So, sir, we
Welcome,
are
sir.
thank you. So, we are warm welcome from our VIT Chennai to give a talk on the scalable computational algorithm for the current in the future, so 2024. So, and this session will enlighten our students, and they can contact you or interact you. So later after the session also, and we also are requesting to give some light on entrepreneurship and how to start the startups and all. So we are requesting you, you can have few words on that also, sir, because these students, so they are after this course, they are going to be joining the placements, as well as they are going to be start their startups. So in which way they can start, what are the different ideas, so are there for the startup booming and success. So with respect to that, so can you share your experience with our students, with respect to that also. So now we are requesting you to start the session, sir.
Okay, good morning and very happy New Year to all of you. And thanks for the introduction. Very nice and very warm, sort of. I mean, I would say even if the weather is not so warm here in Bangalore, but I heard in Chennai also it rained, and hope this year is going to be much better than the previous 2 years. And wishing you all an excellent 2022. I think there cannot be a better sort of start to the year than to work with you on what I intend to share. Also, as Professor Ramesh just now mentioned about the entrepreneurship, I think this is the age of starting up. And also, I think this is a great opportunity to really create a new value rather than doing the old way of doing things. So that's exactly my talk will be. Hopefully, it will have some connect with you. What I intend to do is maybe share through these slides and my presentation based on the slides that I have. Then maybe we'll keep some time for discussion, question answer, or general purpose inputs, or anything that you want to discuss is also fine. So let me share my presentation first, and then maybe you can we can go through this and then sort of explore some questions about it. So am I audible clearly?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Okay. Some problem in the presentation I just shared, but suddenly something. Okay, now I can. Okay, let me know if you can see my presentation, and then I can let me put it on the shared mode. Now, is it visible?
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Professor Srinivas, and for inviting me for this very uh, interesting day and New Year. I was thinking that people will not be, will just be sort of enjoying the day. So, but I think finding time to listen to what I have to share seems to be an interesting type of phenomena. Hopefully, you will be doing something really different this year. So, wishing you all the best for the new year. What I intend to do is share with you certain points, certain thoughts that we have, and also from what I have been doing, and also some sort of explorations that we have done in terms of what sort of changes we are seeing, and how do we really maybe create the change that we want to see, and also what specific type of technologies will be, or technological thinking, if you may, will be required ahead. And I'll just differentiate those thinking dimensions that we believe are the next 25 years. We need new type of thinking compared to what is being taught to us or what we are used to. In fact, last 30 years of our whole endeavor to create something, or maybe think in a different way, seems to have resulted in creating newer type of dimensions, and also exploring these challenges that we are seeing ahead, right? I mean, the complexity that we are seeing in the world is increasing, but maybe it is increasing because we are thinking with the older lenses that we have. So if you really use new lenses to think, and also explore the world ahead, world nearby, and also globally, maybe you can thrive better, or maybe achieve something which I think from otherwise from the existing lenses and existing thinking may need more time to explore. So that's a sort of a focus. and also the specific thinking dimensions that we are finding will be required in next 25 years, and it is just a starting point, is to look at how to scale things up. What is computational thinking? How do we maximize the algorithmic thinking and also utilize the network thinking? Because that seems to be what we are in. I mean, these sort of scaling things up, computational computing things, algorithmizing specific processes, utilizing the networks that are emerging, and also maximizing the value of the network that we have or we are part of is also, I think, the key questions that we need to explore. But we need to contrast it with what we have learned and how we think. And we have been taught to think analytically, we have been taught to think logically, which has stood the test of time for us. But we also have given certain inputs in terms of thinking dimensions called value thinking, inventive thinking, and systems thinking. Although it is not explicitly being taught or being as a curriculum, but I think this is something which we have explored in the past decade or so. Okay. Now, second part will be a tool or a technique that I would like to share, which is called the general morphological analysis. And we'll see a couple of cases where it can be applied to invent the more intelligent systems. And also, we will share some of the work, some of the findings that we have in terms of utilizing these 9-dimensional thinking that is now, I think, most important and most relevant for the perspective of the changes that we are looking at, right? So we call it the next wave of innovation or the 6th wave of innovation. I will explain that also. Before that, as I have been introduced already, we started our company in 2008 when it was recession was there, but my work started in 1990 as a scientist in DRDO, as you said. So it's sort of 3 decades. If you look at, I have been a scientist, a tech consultant or CEO of a company also, and then we started our own company, which is 2008 when we started Graffiti, which actually helps on any startup or any company or anyone to create new or novel systems, novel processes, novel products, or novel companies or new companies. So entrepreneurship is part of what we teach also in our company. So what we really are looking, what we really help or assist anyone is what we call crafting innovation together. So how do we craft the innovation with the clients or whomsoever wants to work with us by enabling the emergence of new, by maximizing the life of every idea, empowering ideas, and making innovation happen. And of course, future-proofing your enterprise are the 5 key pillars on which we have built our company. And we, of course, offer collaboration in all the innovation contexts that you may have, whether it's business, science, or technology. And we actually look at all 9 dimensions that we have identified: strategy, ideas, inventions, learning, complexity, networks, productivity, decisions, and value, so to say. So in all those dimensions of you're creating a new product, new process, or new product market fit, or customer value, if you may, or even marketing or sales strategy, that also we have helped other companies now in the past. So in the past, of course, there were a lot of issues saying that how can a company in India offer these sort of things which are not being offered. So we were innovative when we started our company, and also doing it innovatively, I think has been our core focus. Okay, so what I intend to do is to give you some sort of a input about what changes we are seeing and how do we really look at these changes in terms of what we call the waves of innovation based on a theory by an economist, Austrian economist, Joseph Schumpeter, and also a Russian, Kondratyev, which is basically saying that history and economics of the capitalistic system really shows some sort of waves of innovation as part of creating the newer type of a capitalistic economic system. So then we'll try to explain what do we mean by innovation and also some sort of a framework that we have for innovation. We also would like to give you these 9 dimensions that we talked about, Elvis scan thinking. There is also a couple of emerging thinking dimensions, which I think, as per our estimate, it will be 2025 onwards, this nano thinking and quantum thinking will become more prevalent and more required. But right now, I think the scan thinking are the need of the hour, besides the Elvis, which is analytical, logical, value, inventive, and system thinking. Then also the economy that we are looking at. There seems to be the most interesting shift in last 20 years or 25 years or so in the software-based world or in the what we call the fifth wave of innovation. What we have seen is the emergence of platform economy. So what is a platform economy and how do we evolve? We will try to come out with some sort of a view and also some sort of a tool which will give you a sort of a exploratory path to explore for creating what we call the platform strategy. If supposing you want to start up and build this platform, and I'll also explain what do you mean by platform. What are the things, what are the dimensions that you need to create? And then we will use a model or a technique called general morphological analysis for applying this scan thinking to for platform strategy and also inventing complex intelligent strategic systems, because these two seems to be the key questions that we need to sort of explore in the next 25 years. And I think you guys will have to create those products and systems and also those sort of platforms when you start up in any way. And also then we explore a little bit about the new skills to be developed as what we call a new type of learning that we need to inculcate. And this we call the spiral learning rather than the linear or the linear shaped or T-shaped learning that we are so used to. But the spiral learning method is more natural and also more needed in the way in which the world is emerging, right? Okay, so this is the agenda, and also if time permits, we can have open discussions also, and if you are interested, we can have more question answers. Typically, I've seen that the students do not ask many questions. So one problem can be, and which is by a problem maybe, is to, because I think in these presentations, a lot of information goes, and to process that information at the speed at which the information is coming to you, and you process that information quickly seems to be a challenge because of the amount of information that we share. So kindly, if you do not understand some of these points and some of these specific terms, don't be, please still be open to ask questions, and also maybe we can explore some sort of an open discussion type of thing. Okay, so my submission is to be just be there and go through this presentation, and then maybe we can have a questions answer session. Okay. Now let me give you this whole theory of these waves of innovation, and in fact, I must say that this gives us a very nice framework to understand the world historically as well as the future that is emerging. This whole method, and in fact, whenever there is a transition from one particular type of wave to another type of wave, there is what is called a creative destruction. So there is a destruction of the existing economic system, but as a new system is emerging, or as creative solutions are emerging using newer type of technologies, the older system gives way and sometimes crumble completely. And this is exactly what we are going through now. A new type of economic system is emerging and using the new technologies. Okay. Now let us go back a little bit and see exactly what has happened in the past. Such scenarios, such creative destructions, and what were the drivers for those creative destructions of the past. So one thing is that certain fundamentals are still there, and as humanity understood space-time, we created agriculture, right? Just think about the crops and our ability to understand how nature can be harnessed to create and control the development of plants and also crops. And we actually became more some sort of a civilized structure from the older ancient way in which human beings used to work. So our understanding of space-time was more about how these crops and plants grow in time, what happens to their distribution in space, and how can we harness that phenomena of space-time and seeing how nature can be harnessed to create agriculture. So agro or agricultural type of era emerged when we understood space-time. Then we started understanding a little bit about energy and matter, and as our understanding improved, and also we became more clear about how to harness matter and energy. In fact, energy basically, we started creating these industries or industrial era or industrial revolution of about 18th, 17th century that emerged in Great Britain, and of course went in Europe and everywhere. Of course, it gave rise to imperialism also, because they brought new type of technologies and changed the world around, right? Then somewhere middle of the last century, somewhere middle of or just before the Second World War, we started understanding data and information, and that reflected more in the information technology that all of us are so used to now. But just imagine 30 years back, 40 years back, what was the world. And this is exactly what we are going to feel 20, 30 years ahead, because right now we are going through the next understanding, as we are understanding thought and mind and how the mind works. And this is leading us to create what I call the algorithmic intelligence rather than information intelligence. And the Schumpeter's and Condertive waves of innovation, they have looked at history and they plotted what has happened as newer technologies came based on our understanding of these basic or the fundamentals, as I call it, space-time, energy, matter, information, and thought. These fundamentals got reflected in technologies, and these technologies, the first wave was to harness water power, textile iron, which was 60 years, right? This first wave. Second was about 55 years, steam, rail, and steel. So that continued in the 19th century, almost 55 years of 19th century. And then there was the most dramatic shift when we understood electricity and we could harness electricity. The third wave came, electricity, chemicals, and it also gave us this internal combustion engine, which is still going on. but I think will be replaced very quickly within this decade, I think, by the electric vehicle, right? So this is the third wave, but from 1950 onwards till 1990, we had a peculiar type of a wave which was after the two world wars, and but there was a conflict between the superpowers, which was called the Cold War, that continued till 1990 when Soviet Union was dismantled and also broke into 13 Commonwealth of Independent States, which gave rise to a unipolar world, as they call it, where US only was the remaining superpower, and they continued to do whatever they wanted to do. But it was driven by petrochemicals, electronics, and aviation. Okay, so this till 1950 to 1990, which is the fourth wave of innovation. Then started this fifth wave in 1990, and it was predicted by 2020 we will start some new wave. But this wave, the fifth wave from 1990 till 2020, was driven by digital networks, software, and new type of media to store information and to store all type of processes also, and all type of information which can be harnessed for a variety of functions, right? So what will be the sixth wave was the question that we have been asking for last 5 years. And our thinking is that the sixth wave of innovation has started sometime in 2015, some initial points, but somewhere in 2020, it is going to rise up from there, and then somewhere around 2045, this sort of a curve will give to their winter, but a new seventh wave will start. But what it will be, the sixth wave, and that is what we said, what we are looking at are those technologies, potential drivers, which are making things nano, at the nano scale, the working machines at the nano scale, networked. Things are being networked, and they are being autonomous. They will have their own intelligence to explore and operate in the world around them. And then hypersonic at the speed of 5 times speed of sound is what we are getting. Now these things are being made nano network, autonomous, and hypersonic through what is called two specific trends that are very clearly utilized. The computing itself has become what is called the algorithmic intelligence compared to algorithm that was driving the fifth wave of innovation. Algorithmic intelligence is really about, of course, it is the AI is what people talk about, artificial intelligence, but I think it is more appropriate to call it algorithmic intelligence, because ultimately you have got this mixture of large amount of data available, and that data can be analyzed using a variety of algorithms, and those analytical inferences through variety of means can give us pictures that, or the output, or some sort of wisdom or intelligence, if you may, of the context in which the data is, and that wisdom, that information, that intelligence typically is not decipherable with the existing algorithms that we have been using in the fifth wave. So it's a new wave through algorithmic intelligence, and as we are developing this algorithmic intelligence, we will be sometime at the end of the decade, quantum computing will be the new computing which will emerge, is what we predict and forecast, in fact, because we have evidence for that to a great extent. Now, what will happen when you do these two capabilities is we will give this, when you build these things becoming nano network, autonomous, and hypersonic through algorithmic intelligence and quantum computing in near future, what will it give is three specific capabilities we will get. Ability to synthesize biology, energy, and reality itself, the virtual reality or hybrid reality. In fact, Facebook now is calling itself as the metaverse, meta universe, which is basically saying that it will create its own reality through interfaces that are going to be very different than existing interfaces that we have. So if that is the case, we actually are in the so-called creative destruction. So these technologies being applied in the space that we have, which is also going to apply to our thoughts and our minds. And in fact, we are going to transfer this ability to think and also some sort of a mind to the machines, which is exactly the type of creative destruction that is going to be unprecedented. So it is going to destroy the existing whatever world we have to a great extent, but it's going to create a new world. In this dynamics, we are going to have this problem to solve this creative destruction. Okay, so in fact, there are certain studies which are saying when machine level intelligence will be able to solve what type of problems. And here, this is what it says, that high level machine intelligence will be close to be a medical surgeon by the year 2025, by the year 2045. Okay, which sort of matches with our timeline that we're talking about here. And in fact, this particular study is a paper is available from, I think, 2016 paper, and which we sort of say that it is matching with what we are talking about. Now, what will lead us to a newer type of capabilities in this era of the mind or the thought, when the machines are going to have their something called thought besides information, and also something similar to what we call mind. The machines will become so-called information era AI, and systems with an appropriate mind will be the era that we actually are going through. Right now, 2012 is to 2035 is when we said it is going to become more prevalent, is as per our study. Understanding and making matter intelligent. So the material that we have, that itself will become more and more intelligent at the material level, where the artificial quantum intelligence will be harnessed and created. And that, I think, by the end of the decade to the next 15 years, that is the era that we are going to look at. So if you sort of look at the future, you actually are looking at completely changed world
Sir,
compared to the.
now
Yeah,
it's,
sorry.
excuse me, sir. Sorry, sir. Slides are
Yeah.
not moving. I think.
You tell me.
Slide presentation slides are not moving.
Presentation.
You are at the first slide and we are able to see your first slide alone.
Okay, it is not moving, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, let me share again and let us see. Okay, let me try to share again.
Now we are at the fifth slide.
Now
It changes, sir.
now you are. What are you seeing now? We are in creative destruction.
Yes, sir. Fifth slide.
Yeah, fifth slide. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Slide.
shall I try to move the next slide? And can you see the next slide?
Not yet, sir.
Same slide. We are in sixth slide.
Now it is fifth or sixth now.
Fifth only, sir.
Fifth, sir.
Sir,
Hello, it is fifth or sixth now.
Fifth only, sir.
Fifth, sir.
if only, sir, not moving.
So problem is it is not moving, right? That's what you're saying.
Yes, sir. It's not changing.
Okay, shall I close it and then share again?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me do that. Let me close and then share again. Okay. You are parenting. I will stop parenting, right? Okay, let me see if your entire, let me share my entire screen, right? Then maybe it will help. Oh, okay, I can actually. Okay, I am sharing my entire screen. Okay, can you see my screen now? Entire screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me use. Can you mute your mic also, please? Okay, now I am at. Can you see my presentation now? PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, sir.
Now
It's
it is
moving,
okay,
sir.
sir. No issues. Now it is.
Now
Okay.
it is moving.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So maybe I was at fifth slide. What I will suggest is anyway I'll share the slides with Professor Srinivas, and maybe you can share with the students. Right? I mean, that is anyway after the class, after the discussion. Then, so this is what I was discussing actually, and I think I spent substantial amount of time on this slide. So the main point here is that we have these waves of innovation, and we are in the sixth wave, which is driven by things becoming nano-networked, autonomous, hypersonic, through algorithmic intelligence with quantum computing, and which will give us this ability to synthesize biology, energy, and reality. And also, we need to have this solution to this problem of creative destruction, because we are going to destroy a technological based economy that we have with the newer technologies, and this will lead to certain disruptions. And of course, what we estimate is next 25 years or so, we will have two specific phases when we are going to give the mind to the machines, or appropriate mind to the machines, and somewhere we will start making matter more intelligent by the end of the decade. Okay, so this is one whole sort of structure of the future, that one particular way in which we can look at. Can you see my slide, this number 6 now? Can you see the next slide?
Is that innovation successful creation of film change?
That's
Yes,
right.
sir.
That is right. That's right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, how do we solve this creative destruction? Is the key question. When you solve, what I mean by that solution is, instead of destroying the existing one, we somehow utilize the existing infrastructure, existing economic system, and also incorporate newer technologies in a way that the destruction is minimized, but the creation is maximized, right? I mean, that is how you solve the creative destruction problem. Now, how to do that is really a key question, and that is where innovation comes into picture. Now, innovation is really, of course, people have defined so many ways what is innovation, but I think to be able to clearly define, this is what, after I think almost 20 years of trying to define, this is our whole framework of how to innovate, and also the definition of innovation also. So I will explain these, and also, of course, there is a detailed process that we have for innovation that will come later, or maybe sometime in next lecture. But I think this slide should be enough for you to look at the whole framework that we have. Innovation definition is a successful creation of change through ideas. That is how we started this definition of innovation. Successful creation of change through ideas was our initial sort of a definition. Then we sort of asked, what is it that we are looking for when we say change? So when we say that what is preferred, what is imagined and what is needed, or even what is desired change needs to be the key sort of a goal. Okay, so successful creation of pin change is what we are saying. Pin is preferred, imagined, and needed change, and for two ideas, right? But there is a higher objective. Why do we need to change, right? People asked us, why do we need to innovate? We are happy with what we're doing right now. Why do we change? Why do we create change? So preferred, imagined, and needed change for PON fulfillment. PON is problems, opportunities, and needs. So many times you may have, you may be happy with what you have, but there may be new opportunities and new needs, specifically in the creative destruction scenario, that you need to fulfill. To many times you will have hindrances to achieve that objective of going to the fulfilling the opportunity or the fulfilling the needs, and those hindrances will be typically problems, which we call the PON: problems, opportunities, and needs. So successful creation of pin change for PON fulfillment through, how do we do that change? Through TIDDLE. TIDDLE is this thinking, ideas, design, learning, and evolution. Okay, thinking, ideas, design, learning, and evolution. Okay. Now, how do we think? That's exactly the question, right? So all of us think, but we are not. No one, or we do not know all methods of thinking. Obviously, there may be multiple ways to think: structurally, through systematically, through scientific ways, through maybe imaginative ways. So there may be various ways to think. So how many ways do we know to think differently is the question. And that's exactly where Elvis Scan will come. But what are these pin changes? Preferred, imagined, needed. So all these three, preferred, imagined, and needed, needs to be sort of evaluated if whenever you are looking at the change. And also the problems, opportunities, and the needs, opportunities, and the problems need to be written down or clearly identified, the pawns, right? And then you sort of say the problems that you have to find out through beating the pin changes or through pawn. Pawn is the problems will be routine problems, non-routine problems, inventive problems, paradoxes, or even wicked problems, right? So this is where this whole steps comes into picture. What is preferred, imagined, and needed change? What are the problems to meet the needs or the opportunities of that particular pin changes that we want to achieve? Then what do? We need to do TIDDLE. TIDDLE is thinking. Thinking. You need to have ideas. You need to have design. You need to have learning. You need to have evolution. So this TIDDLE process has to go through after pin-pawn, and this is what we call the innovation definition itself as a process, pin-pawn TIDDLE process. Now there are 5 different paths that we have sort of looked at when we explored this innovation, how people innovate, how organizations innovate, and how we can help them innovate through this process. So we actually looked at, so there are 5 paths, 5 paths that we have identified. You can imagine a new future, okay, imagination. So new future scenarios you can create, then transform a system. Maybe it's an evolution, but it's a creative evolution that you need to. Then you actually solve a problem. So inventive problems, if you identify, you actually can identify inventive problems through the pawn, and you actually solve that problem. You fulfill a user or a customer need, or a hidden or unarticulated customer or client need is what you can sort of fulfill. Then you develop foresight. Foresight is technology, business, or consumer, or even competition, how, or the existing solutions, how these foresights can be developed, different type of foresights, which can give us more interesting inputs for us to imagine or transform or solve a problem or fulfill a user need. So these 5 paths has given us very clear sort of differentiated and also segmented possibilities to explore this whole path. Now, to do this, we call these 5 paths, corresponding to these 5 paths, we have this, what we call the structured innovation projects, or SIP. That is how we execute these paths. Okay. Now, in this context, when we have explored how do we inculcate these capabilities, and this is where our sort of framework and thinking dimensions have become interesting. So framework is you need to see, observe, understand, and live. Okay. So see, observe, understand, and live is the first part. Whatever you're seeing, you need to start observing it. Whatever you are observing, you need to start understanding it. And then you sort of live that particular process, empathize with the user or with the context in which the process is or the situation is. So once you have reached to the soul to see, observe, understand, and live of the problem, then you start thinking. And this thinking is these 9 dimensions that we talked about. The Elvis scan thinking. Elvis is analytical thinking, logical thinking. V is value thinking. I is inventive thinking. S is systems thinking. And the 4 new dimensions of 6th wave of innovation that we are proposing, and we are propagating, needs to be included along with Elvis, which is the scale thinking, computational thinking, algorithmic thinking, and network thinking. Now, once you have used these thinking dimensions to create some sort of ideas or some sort of a solution for the pawns that you would have identified when you actually explored the soul of the system, right? The so-called problems, opportunities, needs will come from the soul, and then you apply Elvis scan to come out with solutions or some sort of a path ahead using those 5 paths of innovation that we have. And then once you have the solution, your innovation part doesn't stop. You need to communicate, you need to craft the solution in the context in which you will find them. I mean, in the context in which it has to be used. And that is where the so-called product market fit comes into picture. You need to communicate. You need to relate your product to the context in which the potential user is going to use it. And so you need to allow them to experiment with your product and then follow up with them and then turn around them to your way of your product. So this is the process that we have been sort of experimenting, and this is the final current process that has emerged. The whole framework of innovation, which is the pinpointed definition, leads to Soul, Elvis Scan, Craft framework is what we have as the part of our repertoire. Now, what is the future is one very, I mean, this is already, we are in this so-called software-based world. We already are in this platform economy, as they call it. And I'll just go through this and also explain a certain way in which you can create new platforms using the scan thinking that we're talking about, and also look at maybe this is an input for you to start your enterprise, which can be a more of a platform that you can create. So platform economy, we have this unorganized set of users. Unorganized or organized set of providers is typically any particular economic system, right? Or the transaction business system, if you may. Now, platform comes in between, which basically connects these unorganized set of customers to an organized set of providers who are independently doing these transactions. So the platform in between, when it comes, right, it creates this sort of a mechanism where all these users and all these providers come to that platform to do these business transactions that they want to do, or any type of transactions. It can be Amazon, it can be Uber, it can be LinkedIn, it can be Facebook, or even Swiggy and Zomato also, right? So this is where the platform economy has given us a new way to sort of connect the two-side markets, as they call it. The two sides are unorganized set of users, unorganized set of providers. If you find these structures where the transactions, they are searching for each other to transact, to make certain exchanges with them, right? And that is where you make a platform here to connect this set of users with this set of providers to create some sort of a structure in between, which is what you own, and the platform becomes the via media or a catalyst for creating these transactions happen in a scalable manner and also in a networked way, but with computational and algorithmic components that you keep on building. And that's what Amazon, Uber, LinkedIn, everyone is doing actually. Yeah. Right. And here, what is now, it is becoming interesting in these complex choices, as we call it. It is the algorithm can make the matches between these set of users and these set of providers. Who are the best users for your product? Who are the best providers for your needs or what you need? Can be through smart nudging, can be incorporated. That's what I think is the new architecture that we are seeing. Okay, to plot platform economy is going to evolve, and in fact, it could be possible that we will have n-sided platforms, or, for example, you can actually have this unorganized set of users, unorganized set of providers, and maybe students who are studying this platform. They can also be part of these transactions, and they can study and also do their, say, coursework. So universities, for example, can be part of this to evolve, or any third party can be there. So this can be n-sided platform that will emerge, is what we are saying. So, however, the problem is that the type of complexity that we are going to get is already increased because earlier it was always a human-to-human transaction, right? I mean, in the earlier platforms. Now what we have is human-to-human has transformed to human with his machine, and human with his machine, and machines themselves are also intelligent. So intelligent machines talking to intelligent machines, human talking to humans, and human talking to their intelligent machines, humans talking to the provider's machine, and the providers talking to user's machine. Okay, when I say machine, can be a device also, a mobile device, and that is where the matchmaking algorithm becomes a question. How do we do this matchmaking in this complex world? Alvin Roth won a Nobel Prize for what he calls the two-sided matchmaking in n-sided platforms. I think this is an interesting paper if you have not read, but it will be of interest to sort of explore this whole area. But I think this is the sort of an open problem, and this is definitely an opportunity for you to maybe define and describe and invent a new platform or new type of platform also, which can algorithmize various unstructured type of interactions and transactions. And specifically in this context, which is, as you can see, it is from human to human transactions, we are into this forecast for transaction, which is actually a peculiar type of a complexity. It's a higher order of magnitude in terms of complexity, and we need different type of algorithms to do that. Now, this is what I think is one particular problem statement or area to explore. Then in last year, last year now, this was one conference that was held in US called TRIZCon. TRIZ is a method for theory of inventive problem solving, which I have been pursuing for last almost now 20 years. In fact, 2002. Yeah, so 19 years. So this is one conference, and where I presented that inventing complex intelligent strategic systems using Elvis-Can thinking for the sixth wave of innovation. And I'll just run through this particular type of articulation and this particular paper so that you get some view about how to use this LV scan for the context that we're talking about. Okay, so so we have any system, the body of knowledge of system engineering body of knowledge. There is a system engineering body of knowledge, which basically is a society, system engineering society, which actually gives these some dimensions of system, any system. And then we actually looked at more of those, so we have created this 9 system dimensions. System type can be simple, complicated, complex, or chaotic systems. And then we have system function or process, main operand type of the system, the level, it can be tactical, operational, strategic, or the policy level system, and then the intelligence of systems, which I will explain in slightly more detail. And then system context is from system engineering body of knowledge, and nature of systems also is there as one of the dimensions, and hierarchy of engineered system of interest, and then the problem type. Now, when you sort of, I just picked up specific dimensions, and we picked up complex strategic information processing systems with smartness or intelligence, if you one of the intelligence system, and the product system of engineering, system of interest, and then maybe inventive problem. Now this we can pick, and this gives us 3 specific type of ways in which we can look at this typology of systems: complex systems, strategic information systems, and intelligence systems. I will explain. Complex systems, I think, is fairly nice available information about complex systems, and you may have some view about what it is, and it's a clearly some sort of an open system. Openness is inherent in the complex systems rather than the closed systems that we are so used to. So, and also there are many cascading effects, if you may, in the complex system. It has many parts and many interactions that leads to a sort of a complete system or a whole system, which cannot be specified just by adding the components or the functionality of the components which constitute the system. And that is where the emergence of something different is really part or characteristics of the complex systems, is the definition here, right? So then second part, which we said that the system that we will be needed ahead will be using information in a different way, which we call the strategic information systems. So the strategic information systems will be using information, will be collecting information, data, and information from multiple sources in the context in which they are operating, and that system information will be utilized at the runtime later on when they need it. So it will not be that they are collecting information or data for usage immediately. They will process that information and then use certain algorithmic mechanisms, or the mind, if you may, that they will have to use that information when the context arises, when the context is, when the conditions are there for usage, that they will decide when to use. And this is where the strategic information needs to be included as part of the complex system that we are building. And then the intelligent systems, which will be, which we actually proposed in a paper in 2012, which is the law of increasing intelligence of technical systems. That became, I think, the basis of variety of other predictions to this particular paper in 2012 when we wrote this, a new law of technical systems evolution, a law of increasing intelligence of technical systems. What we said, the dumb systems are becoming guided systems, they are becoming smart systems, and then in future, or in fact 2012 onwards, we are saying these smart systems are going to be more and more brilliant systems. And in fact, what we believe is the era of brilliant systems is going on. And in fact, the genius systems will be the leapfrogging when these genius systems will be able to generate new type of ideas themselves, rather than some human trying to control or give what to do. So they will actually create their own ideas, but maybe somewhere 2045 onwards we will have, and maybe later on somewhere further down, transhuman systems will emerge. Interestingly, this is a World Intellectual Property Organization report in 2019, which says that the new digital frontier, artificial intelligence, is the new boom began in 7 years back. In 2019, they said. That's exactly the year when we wrote our paper, 2012, right? So this is some sort of a validation of our points that we talked about in terms of the future that we were able to see or predict using, or even forecast in 2012. So what these systems will be, dumb systems will become guided smart, as we have talked about, and these will be harnessing space-time energy matter, which we have seen substantially. Now, brilliant systems will harness space-time energy matter and information strategically. And that's where the complex, intelligent, strategic systems are coming. Right? And somewhere around the 2045 onwards, or 2040 onwards, we will start getting these genius systems where thought, consciousness, power will be the key components on which these will become. So that is the point that we were making. Now, to do that, to be able to create these technical systems with an appropriate mind, we need a deeper understanding of information and thought, is what our question was. So there we went a little bit more into the theory part, technical systems with a mind of their own. And in fact, when we are looking at what people are calling this artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence is the aim, but the narrow or the specific type of niche type of intelligence is very specific to do a particular type of task or in a particular domain, is what is called the artificial narrow intelligence. But what we would like to qualify is this intelligence gets reflected in the output and behavior of the system. Whether the system is conscious in the human sense or is thinking in the human sense is not important. But it gets reflected, it behaves intelligently, or it gives output which is deemed intelligent, is what we are looking at. So the question is then, okay, there's further questions were, what is thought, how mind generates thoughts, or how thoughts are generated in the mind. Is mind itself is computation? In fact, there are certain conjectures or certain points that people claim that universe is nothing but a continuous computation itself. So life itself is computation, is what one particular type of point is. Okay. Now, some of you might have gone through what is called the Turing machine, Alan Turing's classical explanation of computation. Also it gave variety of mechanism of or the model of intelligence, if you may, or the test of intelligence, as it's called, the Turing test. But the Turing machine is really the key theoretical computational model for the computers that we have today. So classical Turing machines is what was from the Turing machine, but then we are also seeing some probabilistic Turing machines, which are so-called stochastic variables are utilized, and then thermodynamic Turing machine, because every computation also leads to loss of energy or utilization of energy, heat, if you may. So the thermodynamic Turing machines will be the living elements also. And second part is that when you give more computation, the amount of heat, amount of energy that it spends or dissipates is substantial. So there is some sort of a correlation between the physical and the informational aspect also. and then maybe somewhere down the line we are going to get something on the quantum Turing machines type of thing. So this is the one particular theoretical input that we have. Then if you look at human beings, there is from the military strategy, there is something called the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide and act. And this seems to be our way in which our behavior or some sort of a structure in terms of how we solve problems or how do we show our intelligence, if you may. How does the intelligence gets reflected is through this particular model by John Boyd called OODA loop, who was a US pilot, fighter pilot, and he came out with from US Air Force. He created this concept called the OODA loops and his point was that if you're to win a war, your OODA loop should be faster than the enemy's OODA loops, right? Observe, orient, and detect, decide, and act. OODA loops. Now, in that context, there is a report, recent report, which says that when you are going to create this autonomous systems, right? Autonomous in motion, autonomy at rest, and then longer timelines allowing for collaboration planning and extremely short reaction times, the machine speeds. So you actually really have this sort of a quadrant or this space in which you need to explore. So this is from military type of study. But the key message is that if you look at your product or your how much of autonomy you have in motion while it is moving, while it is static, and this sort of a structure that you have in these four quadrants, you have different type of requirements and also systems that you need to resolve. Okay, now just go back to this is all information and some of these techniques method. What do we do? So there is a something called whole field for knowledge about the future, which is prognosis. How do we get true and useful knowledge about the future? Is what is called prognosis. It's a generic term encompassing variety of types of foreknowledge production. That is knowledge about the future. Now, if you are going to do any innovation, you really need to have prognosis is the key point. And if in the absence of doing the prognosis or creating this knowledge about future, or at least trying to produce this knowledge about future, because your product or your idea, your solution or your company that you want to set up will be in the future, right? I mean, it is not now, right now. So some future it will be, it can be 1 month, it can be 1 year, it can be 3 years down the line that you are going to come up with your company. So you need to do a prognosis of what that future will be. And their prediction, forecast and prospection, these three techniques are typically available. But I think we need to have some differentiation between these three. That's why I thought maybe we need to include this in our so-called prognosis. Prediction. Prediction is defined as a statement made by a person, maybe an authoritative person, without any reference or evidence corroborating that particular statement. So you will get a lot of predictions, including predictions from me, right? I mean, I'm giving a lot of predictions about future. But it is prediction or a forecast. Forecast always relies on a set of evidence. So it is typically if the evidence is also shared or using certain tools and techniques that are not easily available for the common man, then the forecasting, I think, is a much more robust and much more authoritative way to prognosis than pure prediction. And finally, third is prospection. Prospection singles out factors that are relevant in shaping the future and explores their interdependence. Now, please understand the interdependence part here, because that's exactly what we will use in the next method. Okay, a prospection restrains from making firm statements about future, but instead indicates potentialities and tries to determine how current developments might play out in future. So this is where I think prospection is a interesting sort of a method for prognosis than prediction and forecast. So if you have to start up, or if you have to really do a invention or a startup, if you may, I think it will be good to do prospection than pure prediction or even forecasting. Okay. Now, how to do that? You need to find out what are the changes, what are the variables, what are the trends. Okay. So the pattern of reality in our mind that gets signal from our senses to indicate a deviation, we call such deviations as change, right? We need to identify those deviations. We need to verify, we need to accept, and then codify them as change that we are looking at. So then we reduce those changes into specific aspect, quantity, or quality that can take specific value from a distinct, different and distinguishable set of values at different times, conditions, and context that we call variable. So what is what is change? What is variable? Is very subjective one, but it is chosen by you. Okay, so you look at the changes, look at the variables that are that you are seeing when you are doing the soul part, the see, observe, understand, and live. You basically look at changes, you basically look at variables, and third thing is trend and patterns. So trend is direction of change in time of a set of variables, identified, verified, accepted, then codified. And then pattern is specific configuration of physical information or conceptual entities in space-time and or space-time, which are registered in our mind, or we have chosen them to register in our mind, right? So understand the change, variables, and trends. And once you have understood that as part of the see, observe, understand, and live, you utilize this general morphological analysis, and which I'll spend substantial amount on sort of giving you this structure, because I think if the students or if anyone who wants to create the change or innovate, I think this is a very nice method of looking at these three specific output: changes, variables, and trends. Now, how do we really study this, right? How do we use this? So this general morphological analysis came about long back in fact, by a physicist who was controversial later on, but his work was very interesting. His name is Fritz Zwicky, and he was lost to the history, but recently his work has become, his method has become more interesting and part of a problem formulation process, as they call it. But he was classifying astrophysical objects, and in that process he created this something like a morphological analysis, and which is some sort of a problem structuring method for modeling non-quantifiable complex problems that are that are part of the complex systems that we are looking at. So first is to look at so using GMA to identify a potential set of important factors or parameters, and that's exactly what we said: change, variables, and trends, right? They shape the complex problem in question, as discussed in the previous discussion that we have. The structure of the international system, understanding the adversary, the AI market environment, societal experience with AI levels of sophistication, philosophy of employment, force structure, levels of autonomy. This is from one particular study which these factors were identified, just to give you a specific. Then next step is to create what is called the morphological field for each of these factors, where we are looking at what are the specific values that this particular factors can take. So if you take one value from each of these dimensions, you actually create one particular future, right? I mean, in terms of what it is. So this is one morphological field, for example, from the study that I am referring to. Factors is structure of the international system, understanding of the adversary. This is for US in the AI future. that they are looking at. How do we really look at the adversary, which is mostly China and other countries, but how this country is thinking, needs to think. Yeah, whether the world will be US centric, world will be China centric, or a multipolar world, or a bipolar world, or a collapse of the state system itself. So there are 5 possible values that they are saying the world can take. Right? Then understanding of the adversary, poor understanding and then nascent correction, imperfect understanding, historically good but declining understanding, and good understanding. So these are the 4 values that this understanding can take. Then AI market environment, then societal experience. So this way, for each of the morphological parameters that we have sort of looked at, right? These potential parameters for the impact of deterrence of the adversary, any adversary. So these are the specific values that this dimension can take, and we have chosen these values as possible futures. So if you really now look at, if you pick up any one of these, each value, I mean, on each of these dimensions, if you pick up any particular value, you get one possible future, right? One possible picture of the future. In fact, how many you can have? You can actually have 96,000 possible futures, right? This picture has 96,000 possible futures, because each of these, if you choose, you can actually have a combination with the others. That's what. Now, how do we really use this input? I mean, this particular thing. This is where GMA comes into picture, and in fact, GMA as a group can be done supposing you have multi stakeholders in your, when you are thinking about starting up. You can utilize general morphological analysis to look at the future and also look at these analysis. So what it does to look at this, to while we are doing it, okay. So to genuine uncertainty inherent in wicked problems is characterized by 3 properties that defy prediction. It cannot be ascribed a probability. So that is the first problem. Second is, it does not have well-defined or complete outcome space. Thirdly, it involves subjective, self-referential behavior, right? Which means meta actors can consciously decide to do unexpected, surprising things, right? So this is from a book called Wicked Problems, Social Changes by Tom Ritchie. And this, I think, is an interesting book. What he says is, just look at these parameters, number of parameters in a morphological field. So in this case, let us say 5 parameters. Look at the specific values each of these parameters is taking. This is some sort of a morphological field. And then he says, you look at all these values and create this cross-consistency matrix, right? And here you say you mark them with specific type of whether they are consistent with each other. If I choose one, can the other be chosen? Will it be like this one is not going to happen, or will they be in conflict with each other? Is what can be done. In fact, this can lead to what is called the scenario planning part in terms of exploring the future. And in my suggestion, if you are doing any innovation, any thinking about inventing anything new, I think scenario planning can be an interesting, or should be an interesting part of our see, observe, understand, and live, including the foresight type of paths that we talked about. Okay, so once you have done this, some sort of a morphological analysis, you can now see, for example, in this case, you have these different type of possibilities that you can choose and to generate raw scenarios. Now here scenarios are those set of possibilities by choosing each value from each of the parameters. Okay. So in fact, I have created one tool that we have been using, and if you look at these, let us say 9 dimensions, you can pick up any of these specific ones and create your chosen scenario, right? In this, so you can in fact create a variety of raw scenarios that you can utilized. So I'll just show you a couple of cases and also at the broad sense, system intelligence also, which this is a totally new presentation now, this particular part, because this we haven't presented anywhere. So first time I'm presenting to you guys. System intelligence, how do we use GMA for system intelligence? And also inventing intelligent systems, if you may, using this system intelligence from the law of increasing intelligence, and also inventing so-called complex intelligent study systems, which we sort of say that every system needs to become a genius system in future. So why can't we make it now? That's the whole point. Okay, so I'll just explain this. So as we said, law of increasing intelligence is dumb system becoming smart systems becoming dumb system becoming guided system, guided becoming smart becoming brilliant, and then in future the genius systems are what we are trying to create. Every system needs to become genius. But what exactly do we mean by that, and what exactly are the dimensions of intelligence is what we have covered here. So when we studied, when we sort of researched what should intelligence be, we said we need to have these 9 so-called dimensions of intelligence: sensing, detecting and recognizing, processing, computing and knowing, learning, choice making or decision making, concept creation, creating new concepts or new knowledge, choice making, concept creation, right? Then intuition. We should say that this is what intuitively I feel. So this is where some sort of a feeling, emotions, and some sort of a prognosis, as we just talked about, may be part of this. Some sort of prediction can be part of it. Then collaboration is the next. Then the key functional or capability delivery is the key. Ultimately, it has to reflect in some form which is robust enough for the sustainability. Finally, the stage at which that intelligence is. So if you look at this in 9 dimensions, you can clearly specify a future system that you want to invent. And if you choose one of these values, one value each on each line, if you choose, you actually can sort of utilize this framework for defining your next intelligent system. In fact, you can do it for, let us say, for your refrigerator of the future, or you can do it for the say the lunchbox of the future, or you can say the box, the bag that I'm carrying for the future. Can I make it more intelligent bag? Can I make a more intelligent writing instrument? Can I make a more intelligent blackboard? Right? I mean, or a classroom, right? I mean, those sort of things, or a vehicle, for example. So this is the question that if you ask and apply this framework, you can sort of look at variety of possibilities. So what's the next step? You do this cross consistency check of these intelligence. So I have organized, just like the GMA matrix, and these cross consistency type of stages, and you are marking them with cross, means that these 2 values cannot exist together. The minus means that they are independent of each other. Even if they exist, there is no cross collection. And plus means that if one reinforces the other, okay. So if one exists, others value and others propensity to contribute to the overall good of the system increases. So there is a synergy between these values. So this is how we, just by marking these 3 on these 3 ratings, minus, plus, and cross, you actually get these checks of these 9 lines of 9 dimensions of system intelligence, but each of them has about 4 values. So actually you can see 9 to the power of 4, right? I mean, that is what you are looking at. That now, once you have marked, sorry, once you have marked it, the tool or this method automatically gives you the coloring, and as you can see, the crosses, the red places are the spaces which are in conflict with each other, and the blue ones, the light blue ones, are the available spaces which anyway have no impact. But the yellow one are the synergistic possibilities when you choose any two of that particular one. So the next step is, now if you have this, you can choose all sort of possible genius systems that you want to create, or the maybe whatever choices you have. So in sensing, detecting, and recognizing, let us say I want to do multiple system parameters. Processing, computing, knowing, information I want to do more. That is what we have chosen. Learning, we need to have memory is what we are saying, not really purely learning system. So if you see, what I'm doing here is choosing these. So let us say learning, memory is the first stage, supervised learning, unsupervised, or learning new meaning is the fourth stage, right? So this, what we're doing here is we're choosing certain parameters, values here, right, for each of these dimensions, and also saying that, okay, I want to make a smart X, whatever that X is. Okay, now it should have multiple system parameters, sensing, detecting, recognition. It should have processing, computing, and knowing information. It should have memory. It should have evaluating choices, choice making. It should be able to evaluate choices. It should have inductive and deductive connections for concept creation. Feelings and emotions is the first stage. And of course, since this intuition, collaboration, main function or capability, delivery, or the system, okay, concept creation, intuition, and collaboration. I think these three are little futuristic elements, but right now we really want to see whether we can include in our specification or not. But even if we do not, we can say this is what I want to start with. The first stage is at least you choose here in your structure. So it should have some sort of a emotional understanding or the sensitivity and understanding. It should collaborate with other such systems through how microorganisms or insects collaborate or they interact. Right? This is more of a random type of a interaction. But the functional reliability is what we're looking at, and we are at the smart system map as a stage of this particular. Now, if you have chosen these, the consistency method that we have chosen gives you what is the cross consistency with the other each one of them. So we are saying here the sensing, detecting, recognition with the processing, computing, knowing. This is fine. This is you can include that. These two values are okay. Multiple system parameters and information they can exist independently. But however, processing, computing, knowing, if you choose an information, right, cannot have the second parameter. This is what we are saying for this particular thing, right? So this is just a random input for us, but what I'm showing you a method. Then what it does, it sort of gives you how many neutral inputs you got, how many positives and how many negatives, right? So this is some sort of a net score of your option is created. You can actually have various options here and choose various options from these lines and create your specific system that you want to evaluate. Okay. Similar method is for the platform strategy that we used for a client for the platform strategy creation. And here the platforms, as we discussed, the platform economy, have these 9 dimensions that we identified: market sizes, homogeneity of the markets, ease, proportion, and access to market, market appropriate choice architectures, then algorithmic matchmaking, then what are your nudging strategies on both sides of the market that you have, what is the scaling strategy that you have, innovation focus, what is it, and network effects, and then establishing product market fit as per the business canvas or the lean canvas that we're talking about. Right? And we actually have looked at these 9-dimensional strategy with 4 potential choices, just like what we did for the intelligence, lines of intelligence. And in fact, this is exactly the same process that we follow when we sort of look at options that you have. In fact, once you have this done, plausible, synergistic, and constraining strategic subspaces can be looked at, in fact explored, then you can actually see your chosen platform strategy and evaluate those strategies for different perspectives. In fact, multiple strategies can be evaluated, just like what I showed in this particular work, right? Just like this, you can create for the platform strategy also something like this comes out from the tool itself. So this is, I think, the key message of looking at exploring the future as you are inventing, because the future is going to be different. So you need to qualify and calibrate your dimensions clearly. Now, why we need to do that, right? I mean, that's the key question. And in fact, some of these last points that I want to share are on those lines, okay? So the speed at which we are moving in the future, or the future is approaching us, seems to be very fast, and it is becoming faster. But we do not let go the history that we have, and that seems to be a bane or sort of a problem that we have. Okay, in fact, all of us, as we said, are born creative, but we also know it is taught out of us, the creativity. So, in fact, there is a study which says that child's creativity decreases about 90% from age 5 to age 7 in 2 years. And that is a very peculiar shift, because suddenly the questions and his curiosity has been satiated, because his neuronal structures, the neurons that are there in the brain, those circuits have stabilized, because continuously he has been asking the questions, and those questions have started repeating, and also the answers becoming very clear. So his indexing of the world around him, I mean the child's way of looking at, is sort of stabilized. So the number of questions, in fact, from 370, I think is the number in a day the child asks, and that reduces substantially by the age of 7. At 40, at the age 40 of all of us, it is this creativity is just 2% of what we had then. Now, this is a big question. Some of you are, I think, obviously half of that age, but for me, I am beyond 40. So my creativity anyway is, I think, going down substantially. Although I try to maintain somehow creative pursuits by trying to find out new type of method. But the key message is this creativity is not a given. In fact, it is substantially going down as per this particular point. Now, how do we really learn in the world that is going to, or in the way our creativity or the way we are architected? So, right. So there are recent books have come, which is on the learning models for the new wave. And this I just wanted to share, just to give you about a flavor of what this whole world is going to be. And also, this is an interesting book called The New Polymath, which says, so just like Leonardo da Vinci, everyone cannot be, but sorry. So some of us can be part Vinci's, part Leonardo's, so to say. But how do we do that? I mean, it is knowledge of various matters drawn from all kinds of studies, ranging freely through all the fields of the disciplines, as far as the human mind with unvaried industries is able to pursue them, is what is called polymathy. Okay. So this is an interesting definition. In fact, this Vinny Marchandan's book, The New Polymath, sort of gives this detail. And in fact, he says the age that we are in is the age of polymaths, and it's going to be more and more required for us to be a polymath. Now, polymath means that our learning system and the type of learners that we need to become will be very different than what our education system or the learning system that we have been pursuing. I'll just give you a flavor of what exactly has been the learning system. The industrial age gave us this I-shaped people. Okay, the skill-based and detailed, in my very minute, very focused depth in a particular skill is what industry wanted, and they gave the education system which gave us this industrial age people. And then this pursuit of expertise and a particular type of skill in a specific narrow area started giving us more and more deep and more about less and less is what we started doing, right? And this is gave us to what is called the I-shaped people. The traditional education system is built to produce the depth in a particular field as we go to masters or further levels, right? But the fifth wave of innovation showed us that depth is becoming a problem, because if we go deeper about knowing more and more about less and less, how do we really know the whole? Who will know? Who will do the cross pollination, so to say? And that is where they said the T-shaped people are required. The T part indicates that you actually have broad areas and understanding plus the depth that you have, and this will be the need of the type of people that the previous 30 years have sort of created. Then now they are saying that these T-shaped people need to become hash-shaped people. They need to become X-shaped people or M-shaped people or W-shaped people in terms of how they should be bringing multiple fields together into some sort of a synergy to create solutions, because the problems are not in your depth area that you expertise area that you have, but the real problems lie at the edges of these fields, so to say. What the sixth wave will require, and that is what we have experimented and understood and defined, it will be some sort of a spiral learner. So you do not really have any of these. You actually move from fields to field for the specific problems, specific challenges, specific needs, and you become a dynamic ultra learner who is passionate to learn by expanding the range of skills, thinking and domains to transform into this evolutionary learner who is designed to evolve through continuous learning. So this, I think, is the key outcome that we are hoping at. And the spiral learner, one particular path typically is which we call the mana loop. Mana, mind, action, nature, natural and artificial, MANA, right? So some sort of a, it can be mana or a man type of man in Sanskrit or mana in, I think, Hindi also, and in, I think, some other languages also should be the I think the mind, right, or the heart, if you may. Okay, so real life experiences of the learner are in action and the natural. When the action is being done, you get these real life experiences, which your senses gives as input, and you get thoughts or responses or some sort of a common sense responses in the mind. Those becomes ideas or concepts about creating the change in the future, which you manifest or which you actually act again in the artificial way. And this cycle is one particular path. But this is one particular path. You actually can have multiple ways in which you can do this spiral learning. But the point is, these mana loops will be more and more, is what we are trying to say. Okay. Now, so why this is a new type of learning or new type of spiral learning? Because sometimes back, Future of Management was written by Gary Hamel, who is a professor of management at Harvard. He says, and this is interesting sort of a parameterization. He says the passion, creativity, initiative will contribute to the future value, contribution to the value creation of these three parameters will be about 70%. Intellect, diligence, and obedience is just 20%. In fact, obedience is 0. So if you obey certain rules, certain orders, your contribution to value creation will be 0. Okay. So that means if you are taught to have intellect, if you are taught to have diligence, if you're taught to obey certain rules, then you can create 20% value of the potential 100% that others can create. So, however, if you are passionate, if you are creative, if you have initiative, then 70% value you can create. I mean, the value creation is what you can. So how do we do that? Is through becoming what we call the innovation co-crafter or innovation crafter. And when we studied this, we said the soul, Elvis, can craft is the whole process, where I think you need to accept that you do not know, and that's we call you need to be a simpleton, and then become a scientist, and then become a saint. These loops of simpleton, scientist, and saint has to be continuously sort of moved, and that is exactly a challenge, because once you become a saint of a particular system of particular knowledge, you becoming a simpleton is not an easy job, and that's exactly what we need to learn, continuously reinventing ourselves through becoming the simpleton, so that you can utilize and understand the problems afresh and also with new lenses, and then using those lenses to solve problems using science, or becoming a scientist, and then becoming a preacher of the solution that you have created, or the saint is the point. In fact, there are 10 sort of traits that we have identified, backed by specific tools that we have in the framework. Establish a system of innovation is the first. Anywhere you go, establish a system of innovation. Explore and enable the uncommon. Okay, instead of the common sense, explore the uncommon sense, or uncommon nonsense, in fact, if you want to explore. Okay, even if it doesn't make sense, you explore the uncommon part. Okay, learn spirally and enable spiral learners is a third. Sort of strive and thrive in polymathy is the fourth point. Do a deliberate innovation practice. Okay, so you deliberately innovate, try to create change in at least in your mind, and then of course generate ideas. I mean that will lead to generate. Follow the fourth paradigm. The fourth paradigm is more about the newer type of technology, which is some sort of a new type of so-called way to explore science using data-driven discovery. Is what they're calling it. Then sort of use what we call the 7 ± 2 + 2 P's and 7 D's. These 7 P's are passion, patience, perseverance, planning, pride, and purpose and planet. And then we have added some sort of a 2 more to it in terms of what we call, I think the people will lead to profit. Okay, so this is what I think is the 7 + 2 P. Then the 7 D's are discover, define, describe, design, draw, develop, deploy, and deduce. So these 7 D's will help you do anything new. Anything new you should do through 7 D's. Okay. Then always invent strong. So there is a framework for inventing. And in fact, how do we invent? It should not be trivial or a simple upgradation, but really invent something radically different is what we are trying to say. Yeah. Always explore the 9 key dimensions of problem system framework that we discussed, and establish and track the enterprise innovation canvas, and establish in your organization an innovation canvas, and sort of create that as a. So these 10 traits and skills of the innovation crafter, innovation co-crafter is exactly what we are proposing and exploring. And for each of them, we have backed these by science-based tools to think about those 9 dimensions of thinking. Problem typology, exploration tools, problem definition tools at the soul part, ability to clearly, comprehensively, and unambiguously express needs, opportunities, value, and problems is what we are looking at when we are doing the soul part. Then Always Scan tools includes a variety of analysis for value, inventing using a technique called trees, a theory of inventive problem solving, and multiple laws of system evolution, including the law of increasing intelligence. Then systems is these GMA type of analysis that we talked about, plus some of the techniques that are there. One of the technique that as was mentioned, I wrote a book also on this analytic hierarchy process, which is a decision-making tool. So ability to thinking critically in an integrated manner, analytic, logical, value, inventive system thinking needs to be supplanted with the scale, computational, algorithmic, and network thinking now is what we are with. Then you have the craft tools also, where how do we communicate? We need to write well, besides being able to speak well. Okay. Social network analysis and to create this type of a how do we utilize your networks to propagate your solution can be a strategy here. Okay. Ability to communicate and adapt the solution to the need of the stakeholders is what we are talking about. Okay. So at this point, I will like to quote, and this is what I typically use now in my talks. Every innovator, our essential task is simply to keep open the options for the future, or perhaps even to broaden them a bit by creating new variety and new niches. This was from a book called The Sciences of the Artificial by Herbert Simon, who won Nobel Prize for Economics and also gave us this concept of a bounded rationality. In fact, this book is very, very interesting, The Sciences of the Artificial, written in 60s and 70s, but it is still valid in my opinion in terms of introducing concepts like design, concepts like AI, and concepts like complexity as part of this evolution. So at this point, I think I'd like to close my presentation and keep maybe 10 minutes for our discussion. So I thank you and very happy New Year for this. I hope it was useful. So the whole communication is about innovation and decisions for the new creative destruction that we are going through. Maybe in the so-called VUCA world, variability, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, the world that we have. Specifically in the sixth wave of innovation is, I think, the key message. I have my email here, navneet.bhushan@graffiti.com, and also my mobile number, 9902766961. You can WhatsApp or maybe message me or email me if you have any questions, comments here. So thank you to all of you for listening, and on this new year, I hope it is useful and maybe we can open for questions. Thank you.
So thank you very much. See you, sir. See you, sir. You continue, sir.
So Navneet sir, thank you so much. Session is awesome, sir. Really, it is really motivated our students. Sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Really, it is motivated our students. Sir.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. Actually, you have given that the sixth wave of innovation. What are the parameters to be considered, and which platform we need to? What I can say that our innovation has to be measured, and which platforms can be used to make our strong and solid innovation to move further, and that will crack the wall. So this is very interesting, sir. Really, we hope we enjoyed a lot, and even students also keep on joining. Okay, after starting the session itself. So thank you very much, sir. Sir, if any questions from the student side, so you can ask the sir. Okay.
Sai Prasanna, any questions?
No, sir. It was a really inspiring one. Like some concepts were they were completely new to me, and it was complex to understand. But it was like a feel to learn more and go deep in it, sir. Thanks for the session, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions, comments? So the complexity part, of course, I agree and also apologize.
But
But
learning
I
outcome
think,
is super, sir. Awesome. Learning outcomes.
yeah.
It is
Uh,
really nice, very nice.
Thank you.
And you also discussed about the way we have moved from your startup to this level. So that journey, okay, is also very nice, sir. So that is inspiring us to take
Yeah.
action like so. Yes, sir.
So the journey will always be like this only because, okay, I didn't share a graffiti journey because when we started in 2008, the world was in recession. So when we went to these clients and told them that we can help you in innovation, they said we are in a recession, we don't need innovation. So it was like 3 years we kept on going to them and saying, boss, please look at, we can help you, we can help the organization, your enterprise. But they said, no, we don't need, we just need to survive. That was 2008 till 2011. From 11 onwards, all those guys who were telling us we don't need innovation, they started coming back and saying that, boss, okay, now tell us, you were saying you can help. And that is where from 2011 onwards, I think we have got our traction. And this sort of proves one particular rule that startup community has. It takes about 1,000 days, which is approximately 3 years, for you to prove your new enterprise. And 3 years, if you survive, then of course you have survived. And that's sort of, we proved that by surviving. Now it is our 14th year running, right? So that is, I think, the story. I can share the stories in some other discussion. Each transaction I have vivid memory with big companies that we worked with, or we could not work initially, and what sort of failures we had with all of them. I can share, but that may be in one more class we have to take, I presume. So
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
sure,
Any
sir.
questions?
Any questions from the student side?
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, myself Bhanupriya. I have one question regarding to crafting. Like, how can we acknowledge more people about crafting and to firmly advise them to come in enterprises?
It is a question about how do we advise people? I mean, I didn't get.
Acknowledge more people about the crafting consulting and firmly advise them to connect with more enterprises.
Okay. How do you sort of communicate this framework, right? I mean, is what. So I'm going to share my presentation. Please send it to everyone, whomsoever you want to send is one. But I think start doing these projects, and also we have the complete plan, sort of these thinking tools that we can start exploring. And we also keep on doing these programs for doing these workshops where we teach this whole framework to the clients, so or to the enterprises. So we can definitely, you can help us to communicate these concepts because this is exactly what we need, the world needs now. And in my opinion, I think not only colleges, even the big companies also need. And that's what we have been doing. In fact, now we are talking to the schools also that they should have this sort of a change in the curriculum in some part of. So what I will suggest is going to share this presentation as it is with Dr. Srinivasan or Dr. Srinivas, and maybe he can share with all the students. You can sort of send to anyone. And if you have any question, you can connect on WhatsApp and email to me, and we can have a discussion about how can we propagate this particular thinking as much as possible. So it is a great question actually, and also connecting with my endeavor to do this change. So thank you for the question, and also trying to help the propagating this. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your answer.
Yeah. Any other?
I think
We
yes, sir. I think no
okay.
question.
Yes, sir.
We are
Surely will
seeing
meet again, sir.
some. Okay, some messages are there on the chat, but it is more of all thank you.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
no question there actually.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So if there are no question, as I think one student was saying, it is very complex, so maybe it was not very easy to understand. But anyway, I'm going to share the presentation. So please spend time to understand.
Sir,
Yes,
actually,
sir.
I mean in the complex, it was basics, so I got understood, and it was inspired me to go deep into the topic. So I'll be
Okay.
learning more and more.
Yeah, great, great. So I'm going to share this slides presentation. You can connect on email or mobile also. That is not on WhatsApp type of thing, and send me a message. We can connect. Okay. Any other question about the discussion that we had, or that point specific points on these tools and techniques that we sort of gave?
I think everyone is happy, sir.
happy,
Yes,
happy,
sir.
and wishing to go for the New Year celebration. So
Yeah.
I
Sir,
presume very happy New Year.
yes. One thing I want to tell you, sir. So
Yes.
most probably many of them in the world they are going to be take the good decisions on the new year. So
Yeah.
this that decision is motivated by you
Yeah.
from the
Thank you, sir.
starter.
Thank
From the
you.
start.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to share the presentation with Dr. Srinivas Rao,
Yes.
and maybe he can share. And my regards
Sure,
to
sure.
Professor, my friend S.V. Nagaraj, who is not in the class, but I think we
Yes, sir.
go almost 22 years back, I think, or no, 21. Huh? So who introduced me to VIT actually? And then Srinivas and other people also are connected because of Dr. S.V. Nagaraj. So my regards to him. Anyway, I'll call him also and tell that this is what we did.
Sure, sir. Sure.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, students. Wishing you New Year, Happy New Year, and also wishing you all the success ahead.
you. Yes.
Shall we close the? Shall we close the?
Yes, sir. I need to say thanks to all the students. So
Okay.
thank you all the students, those who are okay attended the session. So and this session is very helpful. Okay, those who are going for entrepreneurship. So as an entrepreneur, so what are the innovative ideas? What are the tools which can be used to make your innovative in strong and proper way to solve the scientific problems? So that's why Sir has discussed about the sixth wave of innovation. So not fifth wave. So still we are in the fifth wave. Sir is talking about sixth wave. So that means it's giving a lot of okay. So what is that? Supporting to make innovation. And this is not only for that innovation kind of thing is not only for the entrepreneur as an entrepreneur. So you can make it in the research. You can make it as a patent also. So all the things and Sir also shared so the journey of okay so the journey of its as an entrepreneurship from the starting to end. So that is also motivated us. I think it is a really helpful and motivated talk for all of us. Thank you, students. Thank you. Thank you all. Sir, thank you very much, sir.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Srinu,
Bye
sir,
bye.
thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.
So,
I'm just. Shall we close the session?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure. Sir.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You can contact him so later. So